A young man once related the following to me. As a teenager, he was interested in sports, especially wrestling. At about 15, a teammate introduced him to the sin of self-abuse. Out of shame, he did not confess the sin. One day, a month later, he was wrestling at home, on the living room floor with his older brother. Inadvertently, his brother, who was very hefty, fell on his chest with such force that he could not breathe and literally died. In this state, he observed his own body, the shock of his brother and his mother, who had rushed in to help him, and his soul, accompanied by his guardian angel, as it ascended above his house, high over the city where he lived, and finally into the heavens. He then found himself in a long, dark tunnel, at the end of which he saw a light and paradise. As he entered into this light, he saw the Theotokos, who asked his guardian angel why he was there. The angel then related to her the details of the boy's death. At this, the Theotokos turned to him and said, "Your mother has prayed fervently to me for your return, and my son has granted her request." The boy, overwhelmed by the beauty of paradise, begged to remain. The Mother of God, however, replied, "No, for the sake of your mother you must return. But hear me, you must confess the sin that you committed a month ago. This is a frightful sin, and unless you confess it to a priest, behold what will happen to you." At these words, the Theotokos asked the Archangel Michael to escort him to a precipice that overlooked the torments of hell. The view was so frightening that the boy almost fainted. Afterwards, he retraced his path through the dark tunnel, down through the heavens, over the city in which he lived, over his house, and then into the room where his family was gathered over his dead body. Then, feeling a tremendous pressure on his body, his soul returned to its place, and he opened his eyes. He then related to his family all that had happened to him. His grieving mother, on hearing all that he told them, gave thanks to the Theotokos for her intervention with Christ on the boy's behalf, and, weeping uncontrollably, embraced and warmly kissed him. Another teenage boy also fell to the sin of self-abuse, and again out of shame failed to confess it to his spiritual father. It so happened that he contracted a fatal disease and was dying. His family sent word to the boy's confessor about his condition, but were unable to find him before the boy died. At the time of his death, the young man's soul was seized by two horrible demons, which began to drag him to a place of terrible torment. In the meantime, the boy's spiritual father arrived at his home and found the grieving family. "If you had come earlier," they cried, "you might have prevented his death. Please, please bring him back." The priest began to pray, and lo, a miracle occurred. The boy indeed returned to life. He immediately cried out to his confessor, "You have saved me." And he then began to relate to him his terrible encounter with the demonic forces that, just before his revival, were on the verge of casting him into hell. Not knowing of the boy's sin, the priest asked of him, "How could this have happened to you? Why would these demons claim your soul?" The boy then confessed his misdeed. "Do you sincerely repent of this, my son?" the priest asked. "Yes," the youth replied. "Are you sure?" the priest asked once more. The boy replied, "Oh yes, Father." The priest then continued, "And do you want to go to heaven?" "You mean I can be with my Christ right now?" the boy exclaimed. His spiritual father assured him that he could. "Then I wish to die," the boy said, crossing his arms on his chest. The priest made the sign of the cross on the boy, and the youth, closing his eyes, blissfully reposed.